actually had to cancel the season at one point, or suspend it back in March of 2020. And then you kind of had to look and see how you could, this is right before the playoffs start in April, right? And then going into June, you actually came back and started the league again, and then formulated a new 22 team kind of schedule to finish out the 2020 season. Not let alone envisioning what's going to happen in 2021. I'm sure there was a lot of uncertainty. So how did you deal with all that uncertainty as a CMO? As things were changing, probably, daily, weekly, as you're kind of evolving how you can actually execute the season in 2020?
Yeah, I mean, I think similar to a lot of us, I have been able to get perspective only recently, now that we've been able to step back and look back over that 18-month period of time. When we paused the season on March 11th, it really felt like the world paused with us. And for us, it was a real moment to step back and really think about what the right way to engage fans and to be safe about proceeding with the season was. And at that time, health and safety was paramount. And so we did feel like pausing the season was the responsible thing to do. That didn't change the fact that our fans still wanted to hear from us. And if you recall back then, we knew so little about COVID-19, and there was a great feeling of unease. And so as the NBA, we really felt like we had an opportunity to use our platform for a couple of things. One was to educate our fans and to raise awareness for how to stay safe from COVID-19, as well as to support frontline workers. And also, I don't know about you, but at that time, I also felt so overwhelmed by the seriousness of what was going on. I wanted some entertainment and some escape from what was happening. And so about a week later, we launched a campaign called NBA Together, which was a combination of building PSAs using our strong player cast who really understands and could use their voice to ensure that our fans felt safe and understood all of the things they needed to do to stay that way. And then also, we had a great deal of opportunity. We have a huge social footprint with 1.9 billion followers. What we found was there were a lot of different ways for us to engage our fans there. We did TikTok challenges and trivia contests and Q&As. And we also had a number of Twitter only or Instagram only content series that we put together, really to try to keep our fans feeling close to our players, our game, everything that they come to love about the NBA at this time when everything felt so upside down. And I think the uncertainty, I look at the marketers in this room and I feel like everyone on these panels and across, in the next 3 days had to deal with the same uncertainty. And so it's really, about kind of trying to meet the fans where they are and really understanding that at that time, there were these two conflicting things that were going on. We had to really keep everyone aware and feel safe, and to for our players as well with health and safety protocols before we could even consider restarting the league. And then at the same time, really bring to life the brand of the NBA and the great content and stories that you absolutely love about the NBA for all of our fans.
Well, that's great. I mean, just being able to restart the season and do that and be able to, get the rest of the season scheduled. And how did you adjust to the idea of having a bubble in Orlando and having all the players there with no fans, and then having to pivot to how to think about how were you thinking about engaging fans, virtually? As you go into that bubble, imagining that had to happen fairly quickly, and it's you're working remotely as well, as well as your agencies, and so having to pull that together in a fairly short time frame.
Yeah, I mean, I think this was the first time that any sport was able to pull off a single site location for the entirety of the remainder of their season. And so for us, as we were looking at that, health and safety was top of the list that we really wanted to ensure. And given the ever evolving pace of the virus and really not understanding where it would continue to go, we knew we could put together a single site experience where we could keep our players, coaches, and staff safe with really rigorous medical protocols. And so we spent a lot of time really thinking through not just how to bring the season back, but how to do so in a way that was really, really safe. But at the same time, fans are the core of our experience. And, you've heard players even more recently talk about how great it feels to play back in front of fans again. And so we knew that if fans couldn't be in the arena for these games, that we needed to find new ways to bring them into the experience and really allow them to feel closer to the game, even as they were sitting on their couches. And so, we had a number of different things that we tried, including never before seen camera angles, audio that we'd never released before, virtual fans, as I think Matt was just talking about. One of my favorites were the 17-foot digital screens that we had, where we had 300 fans a night, call in from their homes to cheer on their favorite teams. And we got to see, celebrities from, President Barack Obama through to Shaquille O'Neal and others really come and participate in that. And to me, that partnership with Mick Ultra and with Microsoft really brought to life what is the core of the NBA, which is really giving fans that access. And I think what was so amazing for me was seeing players look at those boards relentlessly throughout the game so that they could feel and gather that same energy from the fans as they would, in a normal season with fans in arenas. And so, I think we really thought about how we could continue to do that. And especially knowing that even in normal times, less than 99% of our fans will ever step foot in an arena. So how do we continue to take this learning that we had from this special circumstance and continue to evolve it so that we can continue to engage our fans? I think it was a really interesting learning experience. And I feel like the uncertainty and all of the changes really forced us to really open our eyes even wider to the innovation that we could take part in.
Yeah, do you think, you obviously you've got a background, you've spent some time at Facebook, some time at Twitter, and more recently some time at Twitch, which is an Amazon company, happens to be part of the family of companies that I work for. But obviously, those are all kind of engagement platforms where they have communities and they're social in nature.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think having that background helps you kind of think about how to engage fans in a virtual way or even in a digital fashion and kind of helps shape some of your marketing strategy going forward?
Definitely. I mean, I have been obsessed with communities for a really long time. I think how people come together and continue to evolve the way they come together is incredibly interesting, going all the way back to instant messaging when you would be able to chat with people around the world, to now having massive live streaming platforms where you can engage with the streamer and their content. To me, that's incredibly fascinating. And there's no more dynamic group than a group of NBA fans. That is truly the NBA family and a community that comes together. I mean, we started even with talking about how you are diehard Hawks fans. People identify to a team or a player and really want to come together to experience that content. And so for me, it was really about how do we meet our fans where they are. There are some fans for which social is absolutely the place where we need to be in order to meet them. Others, it's in video games, and so we've done a partnership with Fortnite to really enable us to be able to be in that space. And then, we also have amazing broadcast partners in Turner and ESPN, where we are able to greet our fans every day with really amazing content. And so to me, it is about that multi-platform media strategy where it isn't just about a one-stop shop anymore. It's about really being able to customize content and think through who your audience is. And definitely my time in the Valley helped me to hone those skills.
Yeah, do you think from a technology perspective, like the art of the possible, just having that background, having worked at so many tech companies, that you kind of bring a kind of a different perspective in terms of using technology as kind of an enabler for your marketing strategy?
Yeah, I mean, the NBA has always been at the forefront of innovation. This is part of the reason why I was so attracted to this league. That this is a place where we always look for new ways to engage our fans, to reach our players and our larger community at large. And so when I think about the opportunity that we have, I mentioned our huge social footprint, also really amazing digital community that comes together around NBA.com and in our League Pass products. There's so many different things that fans are asking for across those different engagement points. And it is our job as the league and certainly as the marketing team to really think about and to meet those fans. And as I said before, there's a huge opportunity to explore even new things. So as we've seen through this pandemic, there's been the acceleration of so many digital behaviors that, were on track before the pandemic, but it's almost as if it supercharged them. And so I think for us as marketers, both at the NBA and more broadly across this community, I think it's really up to us to really try to stay current and really focus on what the technologies are, not just for today, but where they're going. I look at how my kids engage with technology and it's 100% different than how I do. And watching that evolution and staying on top of that from, as we do have one of the youngest and most diverse fan bases, we really need to make sure that we understand who our fans are and that we are absolutely meeting them where they are and that we absolutely understand how that's changing over time. So
Yeah.
It's fundamental for us for sure.
So I know that, obviously you only had like 72 days between the time the previous season ended and the new season started. And so it seems like you're almost in a always on situation. Now you're in NBA Summer League and you're planning for you've got your new campaign that you launched called That's Game.
Mhm.
So it almost feels like it's, 365, 24/7 for you.
Well, I will say the last couple of seasons, we really felt like it was important for our fans to reopen for the 21-22 season, or sorry, the 2021 season. And it was exciting because we were able to bring the NBA back at Christmas, which is usually a time when folks gather around the TV when you're with your family, and to watch a whole slate of amazing games. And what we found from our fans is folks were ready for it. They were absolutely hungry for us to get back on air. And we did feel like as we were coming back this year, it was important for us to look forward to the place when we could welcome fans back. We didn't know when that was going to be, but really ensuring that we were getting to a place where we felt that fans understood that we were so excited to have them back and that they were such a key part of what makes the NBA so great. And so that as we rolled into playoffs, that's when we launched our campaign, That's Game, to really welcome fans back and to remind them of all of the great stuff of the NBA, not just on the court, which, I mean, our postseason was just phenomenal on the court, but also across culture and community. Those are places where Like David said, we're fortunate enough as a league to really intersect very, very deeply. And so whether it's fashion, sneakers, video games, any part of culture, you almost always see the NBA there. And so we really wanted to highlight those moments in addition to the great play. And then obviously, with what's been going on over the last 18 months with regards to social justice and our community programs, it felt really essential for us to remind fans and to bring them in that is a core part of what the NBA brand stands for, is really about how we participate in the communities around us. And we're a real values-driven organization. So the campaign sought to really expand the scope, and we're looking forward to carrying that into this coming season that will start in the fall, which will also be our 75th anniversary season.
Yeah, that's super exciting. 75th anniversary, and the idea that you can use that campaign in so many different ways to connect with culture and community. I really love some of the retro the retro scenes that are in some of your early commercials that you've done. But I also understand, like, going into like some of the other phases of that particular campaign, that you're actually going to engage with artists and other influencers that are surrounding the NBA community. Can you talk a little bit about how you extend the brand and the brand affinity to those other influencers or other touch points that you think fans have with the NBA?
Absolutely. So for us, it is really about speaking to our fans about the things that they're interested in. And what we knew was there was an opportunity to speak to fans in new places that we maybe hadn't done before. So I mentioned earlier the Fortnite Partnership, which I think was a really exciting opportunity for us to really bring together the power of Fortnite and the power of NBA. And really, we saw tremendous fan engagement around that. And then also throughout the finals, we had a number of influencer opportunities where we built an NBA house and had influencers that published content throughout the playoffs and finals. And for us, that was a new opportunity to reach and to broaden our reach to fans who maybe aren't the biggest NBA fans, but when it comes down to the playoffs and finals, they get very excited about the competition. And so what we found with NBA House was that we were really able to extend this reach into all of these unique communities across the internet and across the web. I think the previous panel was talking about fan engagement, and there's so many different ways to do that. And what we found was that influencers were amazing at not only speaking to their audience about the NBA, but also bringing what was so amazing about the NBA to life through other forums. And then last but certainly not least, we also had a partnership with United Masters where we really allowed artists from UM to create original songs based off of the theme of that game. And what we saw was really, really, really great buzz and an uptick from specifically a number of rappers who were particularly catchy. And so, I think when we look at these new ways to engage fans, we definitely feel like we are just getting started at expanding all of the different ways that we would normally talk to our fans, in addition to, turning on our big social experience that we have going every single day. But these new ways really shine lights on different parts and really address different fans, where they are, not necessarily where we are. So it's a good bringing together of content.
Yeah, no, the other thing is, like, the NBA, it's become more of a world league, right? In terms of representation of different countries and different cultures that are all players in the NBA. And now even with the Olympics, as you see, a lot of the NBA players are playing on different country teams as well. It seems to become much more of a global league.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. The number of players that come from around the world is astonishing. I think, as you saw in the Olympics, Luka Doncic leading their team to the semifinals. I think where what we are finding is also that's a tremendous opportunity for growth for us. We have amazing fans in the United States, and we will continue to create really great and amazing content. For those US fans. But if you're sitting in Beijing or Berlin, your experience with the NBA is potentially different. And so how do we really speak to different audiences in ways that are relevant? So some cultures find that the games aren't on their time, so they have to be they watch time shifted, they get up early in the morning or late at night to watch games. And so how do we bring the ethos of the NBA to them? And we've historically done that through global games. We have amazing regional marketing teams that were able to take that game and really bring it to life across Europe, across South America, and across all of our different regions. And for me, it's representative of not just our players, but our fans. We are absolutely a global sport. And it is really important for us to represent the NBA in all of those locations.
I know that you guys are kind of the gold standard when it comes to kind of being able to salvage that 2020 season and making the pivot and engaging with fans. Have you had other leagues that have reached out to you to kind of get key learnings and share best practices? Because it seems like you are in the eye of the storm at the time in which you needed to pivot, and then other leagues were kind of trying to figure out how they were going to pivot. So I'm curious, did they reach out to you?
We were fortunate enough to be talking with all of our colleagues across a variety of different leagues. And I think what we learned a lot from each other around how everyone was approaching this, especially because we were learning as we were going. And so for me, what was fascinating was to see not just how other leagues or other entertainment entities handled it, but really just across the board, how other brands were able to handle such a massive change in consumer behavior and consumer life in a very, very, very short period of time. And so, I learned a lot from my colleagues across the entertainment and media sphere. And I feel like we'll continue to learn more as we, continue down this path of really trying to get back to whatever the new normal looks like.
Yeah, that's I feel like there's a lot of, even watching the Olympics, and they have the kind of like, I guess, the family kind of watch events where they're watching them and they have split screen between the athlete and the family. I just feel like that's a really great example of kind of being innovative with the Olympics and how to engage in those backstories. And marketing is a lot about storytelling, and so the backstories be of not only the athlete but their families seems very sticky content that people love to view.
I couldn't agree more. And I think, we really found that to be true for the NBA draft. Last draft, we were unable to have anyone in person. So we did a virtual draft. And really what we found was our fans resonated with the stories of how did this player come to be in the draft? What is his family like? Where did he come from? All of that storytelling that makes all of us feel so, as humans, connected to one another. And I think what we talk about a lot in the NBA and in NBA marketing is humans are greater than highlights. And so we really want to make sure that what we are doing is telling those stories of who the players are and who our fans are, so that we can completely tell the 360 story. And I think we saw great opportunity that the Olympics were able to bring together too, of really trying to do that hybrid of athletes in one place and their families in another. And I think we'll continue to see a variety of different ways for folks to find ways to tell stories, because that is what resonates with individuals, and that is really what we find even just myself as a person, that's what really, turns on my heart light is understanding
That
the
connection.
larger connection and story for sure.
Now, I think when you guys are thinking about content and you're running these campaigns and you've got all different kinds of content out there, you can repurpose this content across channels, both like streaming, on demand, and through the various social channels. So you can kind of use that content to build kind of that 360 story and be able to leverage it across touch points.
Yeah, that is very much our approach. And I think what we've been able to do over the last several years that we've been really honing our social and online approach is to really look at not just distributing the content across all of those channels, but how do we really build content for each platform that is unique. And so obviously an experience on TikTok might be different than an experience on Facebook. And so how do you engage and have content that makes sense for each of those platforms and for each of those fan sets, so that we have a number of different stories to tell, whether it is about matchups or whether it's about players, or what's going on in free agency. There's so many different stories to tell, but what we really want to make sure is that we're relevant to our fans and relevant to the platforms on which they're experiencing us.
Yeah, I imagine when you put together that, marketing calendar for the year and you've got tentpole events and you've got, always on content, that it's quite a robust calendar, and having enough content to feed that always on or even the tentpoles is always a challenge. But I imagine you're relying a lot on agencies to help you kind of with that supply chain of content to make sure you've got enough content to kind of support your programs.
We certainly work with partners to help us produce content, but we are also, just so fortunate to have the largest archive of amazing highlights and stories going back years and years and years. And so you'll see some of that as we come up to our 75th anniversary season. But also, we have an amazing in-house content team that really spends a lot of time and stays close to not just what's going on in the game, but what's going on with players and with what's happening across, all of our players' social channels, so that we can really lift up the great content from players, like when Giannis wins and goes and orders chicken nuggets, that we are also amplifying that amazing content and that celebration from him, in addition to the great content that we create ourselves. So it's an ongoing, you're right, it is a robust set of content that we're constantly delivering. But I think that that's what makes our social channels so engaging and really brings our fans closer, even when we're not off season like we are right now.
And your big plans for the 75th anniversary season, that's got to be exciting. Probably have merchandise, content, campaigns associated with that, because that's a pretty significant event for you.
There will be lots to come from the 75th anniversary season. We're really looking forward to having an opportunity to talk about not just the amazing history of the game and of the league, but also, the amazing present and where we think the future of the game is going. And, I think there's a huge opportunity for fans to celebrate their fandom. It's not just our anniversary, it's all of our anniversaries. And so really having an opportunity to engage with our fans, especially since we've been virtual for so long, we really want to make sure that fans feel like they're a part of the 75th anniversary, and there will be lots of great stuff coming to help them do that.
That's what I like about That's the Game, that you're actually connecting it to what it means to individuals, right? If, they played in high school, maybe they play pickup games, maybe they have a favorite team. So there's so many different opportunities to connect with the brand and have affinity with the brand through all these various experientials. So I think that's great. And then you also have kind of retro. So I think it goes across like generations, right? People that maybe, more familiar with a favorite team that they had, and maybe they're in an older demographic. they kind of look at the nostalgia of the game. So I think it just gives you so much rich content that you can leverage around those themes. Mean Joe Green and things like that for Coca-Cola was a great a rich
One of my
commercial.
favorites, one of my absolute favorites. Yeah.
Yeah, I spent a number of years at Coca-Cola, so we had a lot of stories and brand stories that we try to connect to the brand all through sports.
Yeah, I mean, I think, one of the things that we talk about is, sports really forges cultural connections, and it's part of, the way that people across America can come together around one sport or one team or one player that they're really interested in. And certainly, as we were talking about globally, there's an enormous opportunity to really bring us closer together around the sport of basketball. And so we absolutely look at how our players and how the league continues to reach out, and even with our teams to ensure that we're all kind of reaching out to fans in the best possible way. And it all starts with who the fan is. At the end of the day,
Yeah.
that's what we're all doing, is just trying to really think and keep in mind at the center of how do we.
And you mentioned like how many millions of fans that you have like first party data, I'm assuming, around. So you're building like insights and analytics and better understand consumer fan engagement and who those consumers are. Obviously you've spent time at Twitter, Twitch, Facebook. The value of understanding consumer behavior and the data and the analytics around it is so critical. Do you want to comment on that as being like is that part of your overall strategy to better understand how fans are engaging?
Absolutely. And, I feel like our fans have so many different touch points to engage with the NBA. That could be, you could be engaging with a player, you could be engaging with a team, you could, be a season ticket holder, you could visit us on our socials. There's so many different places for our fans to connect with us, and really ensuring that we understand that fan journey and we understand how and what is right for each individual fan based on that data is really, really essential for us. So certainly it's a big part of what we're thinking about for the future and how we continue to evolve our digital strategies today.
Yeah, building a customer 360 across all those digital touch points is a challenge. And it's something a lot of marketers are leaning into right now with first party data and developing those relationships, given that they may have to be a digital relationship for some period of time, maybe on and off again, and their ability to, visit a store or go to an event in person. So having that understanding is really helpful in terms of how do you prioritize the different channels and what's the actual customer journey, and being able to pivot to adjust to it and having the data to do that.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I think when we think about meeting fans where they are, it is truly, you can only do that if you really understand who your fans are and where they spend their time and what signals they've sent you about how they want to engage with you as a brand. And so for us, we continue to think about how to continue to evolve that and to, really bring together, one fan journey across all of our different platforms. I think that's the holy grail for all of us.
Yes.
But certainly what we're doing in the meantime is really learning, and I think getting better at meeting our fans' needs and really super servicing them with the things that they care about.
I know we're just about at time, but I wanted to touch on social justice and civic engagement. I know that, I think of the Atlanta team having, MLK jerseys, and I just feel like the NBA has been so upfront about and transparent with, trying to engage in, in the community in a positive way.
Mm-hmm.
And but I'm curious, like from a marketing perspective, wanting to be authentic, wanting to be transparent without preaching,
Mm-hmm.
but then just like being able to share that message and how you think about that.
Above all else, we absolutely stand with our players, and our teams in the league have used our collective voices to really stand up for what we think is right. And for the NBA as a league, we've long been a values-driven organization who has been, standing up for racial and social justice, going all the way back to Sweetwater Clifton and Earl Lloyd, and those courageous players who crossed the color line back in 1950. And, I think today what we're also seeing with our fans, and I know many marketers are seeing this with millennials and Gen Z, it's no longer enough to have a social post or a statement about what your values are. It really comes down to action. And so what we really wanted to do in this most recent period is not just to talk about and to support our players, but to really drive to that action. And so we set up the NBA Foundation, which is our first ever foundation, where we're dedicating $300 million over the next 10 years to economic empowerment of the Black and Brown communities, including jobs, education, and really focusing on how we can make a difference. And then also, after the shooting of Jacob Blake, we set up the Social Justice Coalition. And this is a combination of our governors, our players, and our teams coming together to really have those conversations around what policy changes we want to support as a league. And so that whether that comes down to voting rights, whether that comes down to police reform or justice, we really want to put our effort in the places where we know represent not only what our players and the league cares about, but also what our fans care about. And so for us, it's very natural to continue down that path. But at the same time, we know we're just getting started. This is a multi-year commitment that will take a long time. And we're still in the early stages. But I think what we've seen from our fans and from the impact that we've already been able to have is we're definitely going in the right direction, and we have a huge opportunity to continue to invest in this area and continue to stand up for what we believe.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think it's only, if it reflects your values and the values of the MBA, it's, that's going to make it easier for you as a marketer to kind of like get behind it and then align it with, the various kind of programs that you put in place to help the community. So, kudos to you and the MBA. So I think we've got a couple of questions. I thought we would touch on these before we break. First one is, you mentioned that gaming and Fortnite and NFTs and Top Shot, the NBA is always on the forefront here. And are there new platforms or technologies that you have your eye on that might be the next gen set of technologies that you're looking to engage through?
Well, we continue to look at technologies and how we want to use them kind of through three lenses of, what we know our fans really want is access. So whether that is new ways to experience the game through camera angles, through audio, through, behind the scenes, what's happening, what the tunnel walk is into the arena. Access is a big point. Personalization, so really understanding that you may be a stats guy and I may be an influencer girl, and that we can have a very different NBA experience and that is very personalized to what we're into. And then community. I mean, we've talked about this a bunch today. I think we recognize that our community just really wants to come together in a variety of different ways. And so we're continually looking at technologies that allow us to do that. And so, we have done a great deal of content on Clubhouse. We're continuing to look at all of the places where not just Gen Z spend their time, but also Gen Alpha. So there's more of that to come. And I think, that is something that I am personally very passionate about and will continue to explore. And I think you'll see some of that going into next season.
Next season, great, awesome, that's exciting. The last panel mentioned the connection between the NBA and fashion and music and other areas of culture. So how do you think about that intersection? I think we talked about this briefly as it relates to your campaign for That's the Game, using, music um, and fashion. I think, can you comment about that? I think there's a certain affinity for MBA and those.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's a part of who we are. It's a part of how our players engage with us and how they engage with society. And so there are jokes that musicians want to be basketball players and basketball players want to be musicians. I think that because what we see is that convergence of culture these days, of just the between fashion, between music, between sport, and between gaming and influencers, there's a really great ecosystem that comes together. And I think it's really driven by culture and who people are and what they're into. And it's just very natural for our players and our brand to be a part of that and to engage with our fans in that way.
Yeah, if you ever watch the pregame warmups, they're wearing the beats or their headsets and listening to music while they're shooting. So it does seem like there's definitely a natural fit there.
We definitely see it every game, all day. I mean, you look at how players arrive at the arenas before their games, and it's basically a catwalk. And so it's really fun and a great way to understand not just who they are on the court, but what they are interested in, off the court as well.
Yeah, I imagine also there's obviously the affinity between fashion when it comes to shoes. And we know that basketball shoes are art, are collectors. There's a whole community around basketball and just shoes, and certainly Nike. So I think, and that's one area of fashion. I imagine you guys are heavily involved in that kind of partnership.
Absolutely. So I'm guilty of that as well. I am a very big fan of shoes, sneakers, and so I think for us it is about providing really great purview into what fans are into. And so, I think, our partnership with Nike is amazing. We also have a partnership with Facebook's Oculus as the first ever virtual reality headset partner. So there's so many different ways that we want to engage with our fans in new and different ways that I think, you'll continue to see us trying all different kinds of ways to bring that culture to life.
Well, that's great. We should talk. Amazon has some cool technology.
I would love to.
I love it. I love it, guys. Thank you so much, Kate. Thank you so much, Paul. I think, again, I don't want to recap everything, but between the community activism and the social justice efforts, between the technological adoption and what you guys are doing with Fortnite, we didn't even cover the NFTs and Top Shot, the cultural connections to music and fashion, and just the way that you adapted to the new world that we're in and the bubble. It really does feel like the NBA is on the forefront of everything right now. I don't know how you do it. It is super impressive, and I think I speak for our entire community when I say we're very excited to see what comes next with the 75th anniversary. So, with that, thank you. I wouldn't be much of a marketer if I didn't plug on Thursday. We have a personalization summit hosted by 7-Eleven. So in case any of your team, you mentioned that's an area, we've got Mondelez and Marriott and Liquid Death and Wells Fargo. So it could be a great opportunity for your team to tune in. And normally I'd feel bad, but we're all marketers here. So I'm just going to plug it. And I will say as well, as the parent of 2 Gen Alpha kids, I love that, hearing that they're more of the focus these days. So I'll keep an eye out about what you're cooking up on that front too. So
absolutely.
Paul, Kate, thank you very much. Really appreciate your support and participation today. So, and we hope to have you back again soon.
Absolutely.
Thank you, David.
Thanks a lot, David.
Take care, Kate.
You too, Paul.
I love it. All right, we're going to keep the show rolling. We have another speaker from the WNBA now, Christy Hedgepath, the Chief Operating Officer of the WNBA. We have Kate Johnson, the Director and Head of Global Sports and Entertainment Marketing Partnerships, Content and Media at Google. And we have Lisa Woodward, the Director of Sponsorships at Anheuser-Busch InBev. And of course, we have our moderator, Lauren Trainin, the Account Executive ATV for Cable at Cadent. And we're going to be talking about women's leadership in sport. So this has been a